I want to read an excerpt from Nancy, a lady Nancy from ChristianBibleStudies.com. She tells us that when our children were young, my husband and I decided we wouldn't watch rated R movies. We wouldn't allow our children to watch them, so we decided that to watch them ourselves would be confusing to them. So we made this decision in good conscience and never regretted it. I found, however, that it made me feel judgmental towards other parents who watched rated R movies. I began to feel like they weren't really fully committed to Christ because they watched things I've decided not to watch. Even as I write this, I realize how ridiculous it is to judge somebody's relationship with God by what rating of movies he or she watches. But it was so subtle at the time. And since it was a sacrificial commitment for me, I instinctively evaluated whether other people's spiritual dedication when they talked about their latest movie that they had watched. And as I made this judgment, she goes, I never thought about my own sin or all the things that person was doing right. Instead, I focused on this one thing that I thought that they were doing wrong. You see, the ability to see sin in others and ignore it in our own heart is one of the distinguishing characteristics of a Pharisee. And being a Pharisee is so easy, right? It's great to make the rules to guide our own behavior. But when we extend those rules to everyone around us, that's when we are in danger of becoming pharisaical. I want to share a book I read many years ago. In David Kinnaman's book titled Unchristian, his very first sentence states this. He goes, Christianity has an image problem. His research shows that 87%, almost 90% of 16 to 29-year-olds in 2007 believed that Christians are judgmental. Now, yes, that's 2007, but you really think that's gotten better since then? And then he goes on to say that 85% of the people said Christians are hypocritical. So the perception that Christians say one thing but live something entirely different is huge. So we are continuing. I know we took a break for Easter and Good Friday. Now we're going back to the Sermon on the Mount. We're going section by section of the incredible message that Jesus taught as recorded in Matthew 5, 6, and 7, and that he probably spoke many different places, but was recorded in the book of Matthew. And so Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 starts off like this. He goes, do not judge, or you too will be judged. Kind of scary, huh? For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, guess what? It'll be used against you. So GotQuestions.org is something I like to reference often. I love how they explain different scriptures. And they tell us that this verse is one that many unbelievers can quote. And you've probably heard people say that. Another popular saying is taken from John 8:7. It says, he that is without sin, well, let him cast the first stone. And just so you know, this is part of the story of the woman caught in adultery, right? Where the woman is caught, and then the religious leaders bring her out to be stoned because back in the book of Moses, they talk about how the sinners caught in adultery should be stoned, yet they didn't bring the man out, just the woman. And then Jesus asked them, who is without sin, be the first to throw the stone. It seems like we all just like to be judged sometimes, right? In somebody else's life. But when we read these verses in their immediate contexts, it becomes obvious that Jesus is not warning against every kind of judging, but against hypocritical, self-righteous judging. In other words, judgmental people must remember that they will be judged by the same standard that they apply to others. And then Jesus goes on that in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, as told in Matthew 7:2. You see, there's no place for spiritual hypocrisy or pride. Christians can and we must take a stand against sin. But even then, our dealings with others should be marked by grace and mercy and humility. So verse 3 tells us, why do you look at the speck of the sawdust in your brother's eye, yet you pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? So the word hypocrite, I don't know if you know this, the word hypocrite comes from the Greek word that meant an actor. And when we judge, we are acting like God. And when we judge, we are acting like we are better than one another. We are not being real. And I think that's why Jesus said this. In verse 4, he goes, how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First, take the plank out of your own eye. Then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Now I can just imagine Jesus telling them, think about this plank in your eye. You can't see anything, but you want to take that little speck out of somebody else's eyes. Yet you have this huge board going through your head. It's like, seriously, people, what are you doing here? I heard a story a number of years ago, and it left a lasting impact on me. And it's about a woman who was really having some hard times and hadn't been to church for many, many years and really didn't have much of a church upbringing. But she decided, her and her little girl, she needed to go to church because she was running out of options of what to do. And so she had really little money, had barely made money in a job, just a really low-income job she was making, and didn't have much to wear, but she goes, I need to go to church. So she put on the nicest clothes she had, but still had holes in the jeans and the shirt and just, a little dirty. And so she's walking in with her little girl. And there was a man at the entrance opening up the door, welcoming people to church. Yet when he sees her, now he's in a suit and she's looking like this. He says, really, you don't have anything nicer to worship God in? Is that the best that you have to worship God? And she ended up walking away because she was too embarrassed of being judged on how she looked, which always makes me wonder, what would Jesus do if he walked through our buildings today looking how he looked? Would we welcome him the way he looked into our churches? Or would we say, change out your sandals, put a little nicer outfit on before you come in our church? The Apostle Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 5:12, so here he's writing to the churches in Corinth, and he says, what business is it of mine to judge those outside of the church? He goes, are you not to judge those inside? In other words, hold the people accountable who are Christians? He goes, God will judge those outside the church. Instead, we need to expel the wicked person from among us or from among you. And I've always really thought a lot about this verse because it is so easy. And I get caught into this. I'm not exempt to this. It's so easy to judge people when they're doing things that we know are sin. Some are really serious sin, whether it's sexual sin, whether it's evil, whether it's hatred, whether it's disastrous. It's so easy to look at other people in our workplace, in our schools, and say, look at the sin they're doing. But you know what? If they haven't given their lives to Christ, if they haven't proclaimed the saving grace of Christ, which we want them to have, right? We want them to have this everlasting life with God. But if they haven't made that decision, we are not to judge them. God's going to be their judge. We are to hold people within our faith accountable. Because what happens is if we are sinning within the church and we have a brother or sister that sees us sinning, and this is hard to do, I admit this, it's hard to do to go up to a fellow Christian and say, I see what's going on here, and I'm not saying I'm better than you, but the sin that you're doing is a sin against our God that we worship. It's our job to hold each other accountable, and that's what Paul is saying here. So what is the secret to not being a judgmental person? There are a few things I thought of. Number one, we need to learn to be kind and love people exactly how they are. It's so easy to look at where we think they should go and what they should be doing, but just as Jesus loves us, even in our sin, we need to love them as they are in their mistakes and their troubles. It doesn't mean we have to agree with them. It means we need to love them and be kind to them exactly where they are right now. Number two, we need to listen to their story. Have empathy, and I've shared this before. My favorite quote on empathy is pausing your thoughts and feelings to better understand somebody else's thoughts and feelings. We need to listen to them. When's the last time you just took time? Their life may seem like it's a wreck. They may be doing things that you don't agree with or you don't understand. How about we just listen to them? Hear their side of the story. Hear their story without being judging, without giving them, things that they should do. Just listen to them. And number three, make it part of your regular prayers. Asking God to give you the wisdom to discern when starting to judge, or when you're starting to judge others, or when you need to help to stop yourself. Just pray and ask God, because it's what we talk about all the time, right? We have our Heavenly Father that loves us so much, that knows what's going on in our lives. We need to utilize this power. He wants to hear from us. He will give you help when you need help in something like this, when you feel like you're being judgmental. I'm going to leave you on a quote from Mother Teresa. It's never wrong to end something on a quote from one of the greatest followers of Christ ever, right? Mother Teresa tells us, if you judge people, you have no time to love them. Have a great week.
Like and subscribe.